Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Siffany's Walk with Grace. Um,
Hello.
Today we're going to talk about Christmas. So we're going to kind of break it down like we did Halloween. We're going to discuss the history and just send a friendly reminder to respect each other's differences. And hopefully now you can at least understand kind of where they're coming from, if it even is valid. But either way, history's cool. So,
It is, and the history around Christmas is just there's a lot there. So I think you kind of tried to focus a little bit on the pagan piece. I tried to focus a little bit on the Christian piece because I have deeper Christian knowledge, I guess, growing up in church and everything, but there was so much there. I wound up going down a rabbit hole. So I'm like, okay, I want to keep it simple. And if anybody's interested, they can, delve deeper. So
yeah, I mean, that sounds pretty good. So, I mean, I think. What a better place to start than the beginning, right? So I think you found some stuff that might be, well, I didn't actually get a date on this, but I would like to hear what you found more towards the beginnings of Christmas, towards the beginning of time, and then I'll share kind of the earlier parts of what I found. Does that sound good?
sure. The two big things that I came across that I found interesting is Santa Claus kind of came about before celebrating it as Jesus's birthday. Santa Claus was inspired by Saint Nicholas, who was from the south part of Turkey, and he was a bishop. And this was back in 280 BC.
I did not know he was a bishop. That's neat information.
Yeah, so it was part of the Catholic Church. And he was fairly wealthy and he had a really big, kind of generous heart. So he did a lot of helping around in his community and gift giving and that kind of thing. And there was one legend that there were three young women sisters that were getting ready to be sold into some kind of slavery because they didn't have money for their dowry or whatever. So they weren't like marriage material. And it was said that he tossed some coins into the stockings by the fire for them to find to help them not be sold into slavery. And so from there, kids started leaving stockings by the fireplace, which is what they would do to help them dry out, in hopes that he would leave them little gifts. So, and of course, St. Nicholas has kind of been shortened down to St. Nick, but that's kind of where many people think are kind of the beginnings of Santa Claus.
That's really neat. And I think it's neat that it kind of started with such a humble and noble deed and cause. And I personally have been, obviously you raised me, so I was raised with the Christian Christmas, okay? So what I do now is stuff that I have intertwined into it, but I still do a lot of those same original traditions. But one thing that I've been trying to do is more of giving stuff that people need that would help instead of just stuff that might look cool or a knickknack. So, like this year, do you want to share what we're doing this year? I mean, it's
Oh,
a neat little thing and it doesn't take much, but it's something we all could use.
hmm, sure. I mean, for me, growing up, it was a lot about, giving the fun things and gifts of pleasure and enjoyment as opposed to things that we might need. And I struggled with that because I oftentimes found myself in need and it was hard to gift give when I was struggling myself. So that's been one of the things that I've had to kind of come to terms with. And so in our home, in our family, the way I've been doing it lately is let's keep it to, you know, easy little things. And we've been drawing names so that you don't have to try to buy everybody something. Um,
And of
and
course, if
so,
you have extra money and you want to give extra, that's totally up to you. We're not saying you can't, but everybody goes in knowing that not everybody will be giving extra.
yeah, yeah. And there's such a weight on our shoulders because I mean, I don't think it was just in my family, I'm sure, that, there was kind of this expectation that, if you're expecting a gift, you should give a gift. And that was one of the first things I let go. Look, it's really okay, and we're going to work within our family being okay if you can't or you don't want to, or all it's all okay. So we started doing, this is our first year of coming up with a small item, an inexpensive item, doing the Secret Santa so it can be special to that person. And we're doing coffee cups. Something that, you can give out of your own cupboard if you have a special cup. Some of my favorite coffee cups are cups given to me from you. I think I have a couple in there from you. Brianna, that's my favorite coffee cup that I use every day because I love the size of it. I love what it says. And so I use it every day. Believe in your future self. So,
I like that.
but yeah, so I just really enjoy coffee cups. To me, they can be very meaningful.
One person got their gift soon. I'm sure you guys probably may have seen our Facebook post that we lost one of our family pets, that the whole family was extremely close to Mr. Motley. And the person who kind of he decided was his owner, because he kind of chose, and I think he kind of went through all of us. And but at the end, he passed away recently, and one of my household had drawn the name, my son actually. And so I was like, hey, what would be really meaningful to this person would be if we get a picture of Motley put on the cup and gift it to him. And he was all for it. So we went to I use freeprints.com. I love free prints. There's an app. It really was not that much money to do this, to make something so sentimental, but when old man passed, I had gotten the cup 2 days prior, and I kind of let it spill to mom. I was like, so one of us got the name and this is what we did, and like, should I bring that? Like, so we wound up bringing it over and letting him open it. And guys, a simple small gift, a coffee cup, meant the absolute world to this person, because in that moment they were still able to hold Motley and keep him close, and that's continuous now. And so when you're gift giving, don't necessarily always, it doesn't have to be something they like, even like it can be something like what's gonna really be meaningful for them, like, and it doesn't have to be big to make that big of an impact. And I just want to share that because, like, I think sometimes we overthink gift giving.
Yeah. Yep. I think this will be a memorable year of coffee cups. And yeah, that gift was so precious to Motley. Was her best friend. I mean, Motley shared his life with all of us, but the one that it really hit home with, he kept her company at night and just was really in many ways her best friend. So to have that coffee cup come when it did was sort of kind of miraculous. I absolutely believe in God's timing. So yeah, when you said, would this be a good idea? I was like, oh my gosh, yes, yes.
And I'm very glad too. So we're gonna hop off the present subject. What else did you find it was in the earlier years? Because there was one more, wasn't there?
There was, and it's so funny how we jump around. So hopefully people are still with us. So
And that's why we do shorts.
yeah. So Santa Claus, Saint Nicholas, was around 280 AD, And in 336 AD, Emperor Constantine decided to start celebrating Jesus's birthday on December 25th. So he's the one that brought about Christmas, and Christmas is Christ Mass, meaning a gathering of Christians, is what the meaning of Christmas, the word Christmas is. And it was thought that he did it on the winter solstice because in that area at that time, the Romans would celebrate Sol Invictus, which is kind of it was the sun god. So they were celebrating the return of the sun. And I think it's so interesting how they kind of brought the two together because Jesus is the Son of God and the Romans were celebrating the sun god. So, and I also found it, I think it's really neat. No matter how you look at it, we are celebrating the return of light. We're celebrating bringing more light into the world. And so I think it's a perfect time to be celebrating Santa Claus, who's all about, in my mind, love and light. Jesus, love and light. Yuletide, love and light. I don't care how you look at it. To me, we are doing the same thing, which is bringing the light into the darkness and celebrating that.
I like that. And that leads me into the earliest thing I found on my research. So early Scandinavians used to gather around the fire, and this would start on the 21st on the solstice, and they would light a ginormous log. Now, this was not just Scandinavians that did this. In other places of the world, some of them you would light what was your Christmas tree from the year prior. Um, but they would light this giant log and everybody would hang out around it. There'd be a massive feast. There'd be, stories being shared. And every morning, if it did go out, they would relight it. And this continued for 12 days until the new year. So it was a 12-day giant bonfire party feast bash. Like, it sounds amazing. And so that is kind of, believe it or not, and I love finding out about origins, is kind of where Christmas lights came from.
Yes,
And
my
the whole
favorite part
point
of
of it
Christmas.
was, yep. And so the wood was often oak. And a lot of times it was very carefully selected. They would carve images. A lot of the times it would be of Norse gods. And yeah, that's why we have Christmas lights. And it was to signify, it's like you said, the coming of longer days, of more sun and warmth. And so, yeah, it all connects. And I think that's really neat.
Mm.
Um, I did find another interesting fact that the 12 days that was signified in that may have been influenced by the wise men visiting Jesus 12 days after his birth.
Oh, that's so interesting. That's interesting. I love to see how it all just kind of, hey, let's take that and we'll add that and piece these things together, I think is,
Mm-hmm.
wow,
And then
fascinating.
the pagans, they brought the Christmas tree in because it was kind of their way of trying to keep the mother goddess warm, of welcoming her, Mother Earth, into their house, and sharing what they have with her as she has shared her fruits with them. And so that's where the tree thing came into play. Do you know where Christmas bulbs come from?
Christmas bulbs.
Yeah, I found that one in my research, and I was interested in that because I've never heard that one.
Oh, I did read something about somewhere that yes, they would bring the greenery in and often like bits and pieces of metal. Is
So
that
that too, but what I found was like that the early pagans would hang apples as like an offering to the mother goddess to feast.
oh,
And that's why red bulbs.
why the red bulbs?
Uh-huh. So
Very
I bet
cool.
yours is probably more like the silver and stuff. And then the tinsel, that came from a story about, a little spider that was hanging out in someone's house, and this lady had done her tree up all pretty and made it all nice, and the spider was like, "Oh my goodness, how gorgeous." And overnight spun a web over it, and Santa came in and saw what the spider was trying to do, but realized that it was also going to make the woman sad, being it shrouded in cobweb. And so he made the cobweb shiny and sparkly, and that is the origin of tinsel. The story, anyway. There's a
Wow.
spider. Yeah.
Very cool. Very
Isn't that
cool.
neat?
That is neat. Did you
Oh, and to add to that, in the pagan belief, a spider means a gift, you're expecting a gift from the gods as well. So there's also deeper significance to that.
of that gift giving piece, huh?
Hmm.
Yeah. Yep. I also read that during Yule, the Oak King is going away and the Holly King is coming in. Did
So
you read up
I
about that one?
I did, and this one I
Okay.
didn't take actual notes because I really like how they worded it. This was just off of a Facebook post. I couldn't find like an actual source, so I don't know if they like copied and pasted it or what. In the Celtic tradition, winter is ruled by the Holly King and the Oak King, or Green Man rules over summer. And so the Oak King and Green Man are the same. In medieval times, the Holly King was represented by a boy who walked around town accompanied by his bride, Ivy Girl, teasing and laughing and taunting each other in a kind of ritualistic courtship. These are the last remaining strands of the tradition going back millennia, where they were once god and goddess, remembered in the old carol, The Holly and the Ivy, where the holly wears the crown. The Oak and Holly King are two aspects of our ancient god of the sun. Rising and falling, he is forever reborn at the winter solstice. This is an ancient and recurring motif across the world and seen in other gods, sun gods, like Roman Mithras. In Britain, the sun god was known by many names and can be found in King Arthur's as well as the old Celt myths about Mabon, or sun. Honored by druids at the winter solstice who reap his sacred seed, the mistletoe with golden sickle, he brings back life to the land. At the darkest time, try to close your eyes and look within. In the distance is a tiny pearl of flame. This is the sun within you. As you breathe, the solstice grows in power, reaching out its rays. It touches your heart, bringing life and renewal. So I thought that was kind of neat. Like I said, it was just something floating around Facebook, but I like the meaning in it, and it does hold the history. And yeah, I did find that one too.
Yeah, that's cool.
One other thing I found is Christmas was dated back as early as the 4th century, likely had almost, if not absolutely nothing to do with Jesus. It was a pagan thing. Um And you talked about the evergreen already. I found that one too, that it signifies the return of life and light, as winter solstice means the days are about to get longer.
Hmm.
Oh, mistletoe. So mistletoe was actually a druidic origin. So the druids believed that it was an all-powerful healing item from the sacred oak tree. And if somebody met, this is like a fun little myth thing they had, if somebody met in the forest, you give them a sign of peace under a mistletoe. So they started hanging it above doors to bring peace into their home. And the church actually banned the use of mistletoe for a period because it was such powerful symbology. And that kind of went hand in hand with the War in Christmas, which dates back to the mid 17th century. And Puritans actually banned Christmas for 20 years in America
Wow.
during that time frame too.
Wow.
So that's all the research I found, but I did find it kind of crazy that Puritans were all about God and stuff, so they banned it, and now it's a holiday about Christ. I found that to be quite ironic. Like, I'm not judging, it was one of those facts that you're like, really?
Yeah. And did it say why they banned it again?
I think just because it was a pagan thing, it was most likely it didn't go into very much detail. That those facts, the last bit of facts there I found off of a CBS thing that they had done actually. Um
Oh, okay.
yeah, it was like a thing somebody went and did a bunch of research, posted it on CBS, but
Wow.
I do know just from other research I've done that during like the witch trials and stuff like that, there was a lot of banning of a lot of symbolic items and or tradition that was heavily influenced by witches and witchcraft. And so what they would do is they just cut it all out.
Hmm.
It was in
Oh,
their attempts to shut everybody down and remove it.
wow. Okay, I gotta say something. And I have felt this way about science and God. There's always kind of been this disconnect. It's either you're a scientist and don't believe in God, or if you're a God and you don't put a whole lot of, you believe in God, but you don't put a whole lot in science. And in my mind, I'm like, but God kind of created science. I mean, science to me is how God is expressed. And so, if you start looking deeply into science, you don't even have to look very deep into science to be, awed by the the beauty and the in there's just the tiniest, all the way down to the tiniest little thing. You could still see the universe in the tiniest of atoms. So to me, it's proof of God's creation. And I feel that same way about Christmas, which is why I don't push any of it away. To me, paganism is all about the the elements: earth, fire, water, air, and spirit. Who invented all that? Where did all that come from? So I have no qualms kind of bringing it all together and letting it kind of flow together. So I see God's spirit, the great spirit. I see it in all the elements. I see it at work in the story of Santa Claus, this big jolly guy who gives gifts. It's kind of the season of forgiveness. It's the season of letting go and blessing our brothers, and kind of letting bygones be bygones. And so to me, it's all peace and part of the same thing. So I wanted to say one more about Saint Nicholas.
Before you
December
do
6th.
that,
Okay.
I wanted to touch I don't mind touching on that. So I've been watching Young Sheldon and I'm really enjoying it. But
Mhm.
in the first I think it's the first season, like midway-ish towards the end, give or take, don't hold me to it. There's an episode and the whole series, like the mom is trying to get Sheldon to accept God and everything, and he's like, "Well, I don't believe in God." Well, it winds up coming up where he's like his mom just kind of loses faith in one episode. And he's like, "Mom, like there's only whatever percent chance, I'm not even going to try to guesstimate what numbers he used, that this would be in this position and this would be in this position. If these were even a little bit off, like this universe couldn't even sustain life. Then on top of that, you calculate in this, and this, which are all the factors that have to come into play for this. And if they're not absolutely precise, and this can't happen. So no, I don't believe in God, but I do believe we were created. I do believe
Wow.
there is a creator because those statistics are unimaginable. They're unfathomable. They're some like, trillion, billion, something or another to one type of thing. And he was like, yeah, somebody's there. I don't believe in God specifically, but I do believe that there is a creator.
A
And I
creator.
thought it was neat to hear it from that scientific standpoint and like, I don't
Uh-huh.
know. But yeah, what was your last thing?
Oh, I don't know. But yes, something is ordering the universe. And I think, it's how we define God, but most of us if not all of us, kind of there is there's a kind of an agreement out there that something put this in place, and it, yeah, like young Sheldon said, even the tiniest thing out of whack and the whole thing falls apart. So yeah. So St. Nicholas on December 6th was declared St. Nicholas Day, in honor of his passing. In European cultures, they adapted versions of St. Nicholas. Swiss and German called it Christkind or Kris Kringle, the Christ child. And it was, they kind of talked about how they would accompany St. Nicholas to deliver presents.
Would you like to quickly kind of touch on your Kris Kringle experience? When mom was younger, she had lived in Germany for a while and she actually went to one of the Kris Kringle markets. And so we went to the one here where we live this year, which obviously could not amount up to something that's been doing it for way longer, but it was really neat the way that you kind of described it. If you're able to summarize a touch and kind of tell us like how it felt so magical, and because I think energies play a lot into it too. And what energies we put out is what we get. And so if you have a mob of people putting out this happy energy, I mean, imagine what that feels like.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, those were some of my favorite times in Germany was going, we lived in Nuremberg, and Nuremberg is known for like the best Kris Kringle market, and which is a Christmas market. So people are selling Christmas ornaments and cookies and nutcrackers. I was hoping maybe someone would have some kind of cuckoo clocks going because Germany's famous for those. But um, Glühwein was a warm, thick wine that kept you warm because you're outside walking around and it's cold. In Germany, there's no age restriction, so even the kiddos, like I said, probably not a 3-year-old, but there was no age restriction, so many people drank that to keep warm. The bratwurst, and the really cool thing about the bratwurst is there was a brat house in Denver that sold specifically Nuremberg bratwurst, and I was so thrilled. Yes, it was a fun day. I really enjoyed it.
That was your second goal, huh? To the cuckoo clock was to find the bratwurst.
The Nuremberg bratwurst, because normally bratwursts are, the typical bratwurst that you think of, nice, fat, and round. And I'm like, that is not what I remember. I remember you got two, they were more small sausage like the size of your finger. And that's what they were there. So when I saw that, I'm like, oh my God, I want that. And sure enough, it was exactly as I remember. So it was cool.
I was so glad we got to join you for that.
England called him Father Christmas, France, Père Noël, and then other parts, Sinterklaas. So I love all the names and the ways that he has been defined. But Santa, in particular, here in America, started taking shape in the 1800s. Irving wrote tales about this being a time of coming together and unity. Clement Clark Moore in 1822 wrote The Night Before Christmas, which of course is probably one of our most famous. But that gave kind of the modern idea of Santa Claus being that jolly man with the big belly, flying through the sky with a sleigh of reindeer. That came about from that book, The Night Before Christmas.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yep, 1822. And then 1881, Thomas Nast drew Santa as a cheerful, round belly, white bearded man in a red suit for, guess which company? Coca-Cola. So think of your Coca-Cola cans and that famous Santa with Coca-Cola.
That
So
makes
that's
sense
pretty,
because they're the ones that blast the Santa commercials like there's no
yep.
tomorrow. And they've like perfected Santa Claus.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't know that. So that started in 1881. 1939, Montgomery Wards gave away a coloring book as part of like a promotion. And the coloring book was Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. So that's where he came from. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Thank you, Montgomery Wards, for this coloring book kind of promotional booklet that they gave out in 1939. And look how famous Rudolph is.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah,
And thank
neat.
you all for joining us today.
Yeah. So let us know some of your traditions, things you've let go, things that, other tidbits that we didn't cover, or any ideas, thoughts. We
Yeah,
love to hear them.
we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, thank you. You all have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.